All right, we are live. Josh, I don't know if it's just that I've pruned my timeline very well on Twitter, but people actually seemed happy in Star Wars Twitter today. I just got rid of all the people that like just hate everything, but people seemed genuinely excited about this episode. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, it lived up to the hype, right? They were hyping up this episode was going to be a game changer. And it certainly was. When you discuss, like when you have big shows like this, sometimes I just roll my eyes that some characters just have plot armor. Like the example is spoiler alert for those that watch Game of Thrones, post stabbing Jon Snow is like the biggest like freaking eye roll because the man just makes the stupidest decisions and should die like 4-5 more times in the story. Doesn't. He's invincible post stabbing. That's an example of plot armor. Not in this show.
Yeah,
Show.
I feel like the people that lived pretty much Chimera wanted them to all live. Like I don't think anyone survived that wasn't supposed to. Maybe Soul.
Yeah, maybe Soul, but I think you need to demonstrate just how strong Soul is or how he's stronger than everybody else. And it kind of goes into this conversation about, well, what's the difference between a Jedi Master and a Jedi Knight? A Jedi Master is able to survive in a counter like that. Clearly, Jedi Knights cannot.
Well, let's get into the fight because I think that we're going right into this. And I will say, you know me, I love the dark side stuff. Yeah. And man, when he shish kebab these dudes, I couldn't have been happier. Like I saw it coming a mile away. When he stabbed him and then like put his hand up, I was like, oh yeah, we're getting this. And it happened, and I was so damn happy in my house.
Yeah, and then they panned because it's Disney, right? You can't show decapitation.
That would have been awesome to show it, but you know, I mean, they do have a violent death later. But let me just ask you, Josh, do you think the Jedi died too easy in this?
This is a great question. And I'm going to say no, because again, you have to take into consideration the setting here. The Jedi are at their peak. It's the High Republic, but they have not been challenged in centuries. This is the first legit fight that these Jedis have. Like, who else would they be fighting at this time?
So even probably like just 100 years before this, they'll have the Nile, but they're not Force users, right? No. There's some spatterings of Force users, but they've never fought something like this,
right? So they're under-equipped to have these types of duels. And as you learn in other Star Wars content, like there is a moment in which even the Jedi Council starts teaching the ability to fight dark users. Clearly, this is before those teachings. So you need to demonstrate just how strong a Sith user is and the difference with somebody who is learning to parry, somebody that may have a different weapon, to someone who could wield the dark side of the Force and the level of aggression that they are showing. The Jedi that die easily, to your point, like to your question, should die this easily. And I know there's been YouTube videos for years just about how Star Wars lightsaber duels are just so unrealistic. Like if you were in real life today with sword battles, they do not last that long. And it's a lot of slashing, maybe get a couple hits in, but then somebody outduels you, much like fencing in the Olympics. Fencing does not last 10 minutes. Chorizy.
Right.
It lasts maybe 10 seconds. And that's how a real sword fight, saber fight would go. You got that in this. This is very realistic. So I enjoyed it. And I think it was correct.
I think I agree with you in the sense that, especially when Yord is talking about it, poor Yord, when Yord is talking about it, he's saying like, he doesn't follow any of the combat rules. And it's like, dude, you're in a fight. Why would someone be following rules? You know? And so like, that's the kind of thing that I think you're alluding to, is just like, they're not prepared for something like this. They've never dealt with anything like this. And then I gotta I gotta ask, what do you think about Yord getting his head snapped, like his neck snapped? Uh, I thought it was incredible. I'm surprised Disney showed it. I loved it.
Yeah, so that's the difference, right? Neck snapping, okay. Decapitation, not okay. I am curious on how the new Deadpool movie goes.
Well, now we know.
Summer.
Now we know what's in bounds. So I think
Yes.
that's a lot of people are going to get their neck snapped in the Deadpool movie. I think we could predict that right now.
Yeah, Yord ran really well for being slashed above the knee. That was my first reaction. Like, Yord, you need to be running with a limp actor, limping. No, but yeah, I mean, for a moment there, I'm like, oh, okay, let's go, Yord. Let's see what you got. And again, it didn't last very long because it's not going to last very long. And yeah, that's just the difference between the Sith and the Jedi. The Sith, they fight to win. And it does raise the question, like, even for the Jedi, what is their end desire when they do get into combat? And that's why so many of them lose. Like Yoda against Palpatine, when you look at the prequels, like going back to that fight, Chorizy, what was the end game for Yoda? Did Yoda really want to kill Palpatine, or was he too conflicted to go that extra step? Obi-Wan didn't.
You see it in, Mace Windu against Palpatine. You see it in this episode. Like Soul could have killed Chimera. He didn't. And that'll probably be a mistake as we get into this further. But yeah, I think they're not prepared to go the extra mile that the dark side users are going to go. And speaking of going the extra mile, Josh, when he kills Jackie and he says, "Was that its name?" Is that the coldest line ever in Star Wars?
Yes. Yeah, by far. By the way, cap tip to Jackie. Amazing action scenes. And she's a very talented actor. I think it just got leaked today. She is going to be in the new Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Oh, great.
Reprising her X-23 character from Logan. Phenomenal. And I think she's only 19. So she has got a very long career ahead of her, especially for like action movies. Like she's fantastic at action scenes, and her ability, I keep forgetting her name, but Jackie, and demonstrating her ability, just even being a Padawan though, and those fight scenes were phenomenal. It feels like all the gripes that I had earlier in this show about, especially like the editing, saving it all up, or maybe they spent all their time in this episode. Which, if that was the case, I totally believe you, and great job. Yes, I had to go through your mistakes in episodes 2 and 3, but well worth it because this was a well-polished episode.
I mean, and I don't know that they filmed this in the volume, but that was one of my gripes in the beginning when we talked about the editing and like how things kind of looked, and like the fight scenes that Jackie had in particular, like when she comes in just like drop kicks May, that like. That looked like it could have been in a gigantic place. So however they made that, like that looked really good. And
that was two fighting styles for an actor. Very difficult. There's a difference between hand-to-hand combat and then wielding a weapon. And then she wields two weapons. Like the rehearsal time to learn those two big fights, Chorizy. Like I am really curious behind the scenes how long it took her to learn that. And she's doing that with two different actors. So even though Jackie dies, in my opinion, Jackie is low-key the production MVP of this episode because she takes it to another level of badass.
She was awesome. She was awesome in it. The dual lightsaber is always good. I did like that Chimera pulls out that second lightsaber out of his lightsaber.
Oh, that was so cool. And I have so many questions.
It adds a little bit more to his mythology, right? Because that means this dude has bled two separate kyber crystals, which if you read the comic books or anything, or in some of the books, like that's apparently a brutal thing to go through, like bleeding that thing. Like it's like it's horrible for everyone involved, the kyber crystal and the person. So like the fact that he's just has two of them is kind of crazy on its own.
It's like a dagger. It's a
Yeah.
lightsaber dagger that he's just like 3
he,
times.
he worked with it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. But the question that I have, like with these fighting episodes, what is he wearing that could just shut off a lightsaber?
Cortosis. So I'm sorry for being a huge nerd, but
Okay.
so this is from the books actually, and this is canon books. So this isn't like just some like way back legends thing. So it's like this brownish metal. It can knock out lightsabers. It could also deflect. It like absorbs the shock from a blaster too, right? Which is why when he gets shot with the stun thing, he just turns around. So the reason that it's kind of fun and that you don't see it really in anything else is, so it's real rare, couple like way out planets. It comes up in the Thrawn book because Thrawn's going to check out some stuff that's going on way out in the closer to the chaos, and he runs into Anakin Skywalker. This is well before everything. This is during the Clone Wars, and they end up going on a mission together because he's kind of fact finding about what's going on, and Anakin is trying to save Padme from some like far off planet. But they come across a cortosis mine where they're gonna fit the what is it, the one of the bomber droid things with this stuff so that they can fight Jedi better. So they're just kind of weave it in. You can't make it into full armor though because it's very weak, which is, they kept that pretty good in this episode where Jackie's able to punch it. Like the fact that she's like punching into that thing that can stop a lightsaber seems weird, but it's kind of like a really soft, malleable metal. So like it makes sense that she could do that. And sorry for nerding out about this, but the last thing I'll say is that the funny thing about it is that the way it absorbs energy and everything, Anakin ends up blowing up the mine in that book, but it absorbs energy, right? So like it just sent all the shockwave into the middle of this planet and like almost destroys the planet. Like it just totally devastates the planet. So that's why there's probably not a lot of it around in the further out story. So this story we're watching now happens 100 years before that or something, 150 years before that.
Got it. Okay, this is the first time we've been introduced to it though. So that's what was
it's
catching
awesome.
me off guard. Like how is he able to short circuit the lightsabers?
When he did that the first time in the episode, I was like, whoa, did that just happen? I gotta rewind this and see how he did that. And like, yeah, that was really cool. And it's cool that they're referencing something from the book and like referencing it really nicely, like really kind of sticking to exactly what it sounds like in the book.
Well, it raises questions like, man, how come the Sith haven't been doing this the entire time? But we may know, because again, I think it goes into our next topic about like Kiermaier. He did not want to be exposed at this moment. So
he did not.
He can't be happy that he has been exposed.
And yeah, we should jump to that because let's get this drink real quick. This is from Drew Bogues. He says, "Who knew Manny Jacinto had the wide acting range to go from bumbling idiot, secret genius to mastermind villain, master Sith?" Yeah, I mean, watching The Good Place, I didn't think, man, this guy would be an evil ass villain.
Are you kidding me? Jason, the monk who swore to never speak.
But yeah, he reveals himself as not really as a Sith. He just says, "You would call me a Sith." And I think that's interesting. And I think there's some things, and I think I sent you a tweet about this, Josh. This was pretty interesting to me. That I guess during the episode, there's a part where it's almost exactly Kylo Ren's theme that gets played. And the fact that he's not really considering himself a Sith, he's just a dark side user, right? Like I really am taking that as his thought. A lot of people are saying that this is kind of the origin story of the Knights of Ren. So the Knights of Ren predate Kylo Ren. That's canon already. That's all in the comic books and stuff. And they've had multiple leaders over time, but like there is some thought to that. How would you feel about if that is the kind of just a little piece of this? It's not the main story, but this is like your origin story of the Knights of Ren.
I would appreciate it because the Knights of Ren were really hyped up in Force Awakens and then never brought up again until the end of Rise of Skywalker. And I feel like that was a gigantic missed opportunity for those movies. But if we could learn more about the Knights of Ren, or they could be implemented or used in different types of stories within the Star Wars universe, I'm totally game for it because, again, like, we're going to be having these conversations, like, even when it comes to like Jedis and gray Jedis, like Ahsoka Tano is considered a gray Jedi. Like, there are levels to light side users. There has to be levels, and we actually know that there's different levels of dark side users. You have the Night Sisters, and then you have the Sith. So having a group like the Knights of Ren, who maybe don't view themselves or completely align with the Sith, because the Sith want absolute power and control, where the Knights of Ren just, I don't know, like, if this is the origin story, they just want to exist. Like, it just seems like Kirmir's end game is, I want freedom to do whatever I want.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the scene with him where he's just kind of saying, like, when you asked him, what's your goal? Why are you doing this? I did like when he said, why would you risk discovery? And he's just like, I wore a mask, dude, but the idea of like, hey, I just want to exist. Is Kymir right? Or does he have a point about the Jedi being the ones setting the rules?
This is a great life philosophical question. And what I mean by that is, Chorizy, do you believe that all humans on planet Earth should have the freedom to do whatever they want?
Yeah, probably not, right? I mean, like,
that's such a Midwest answer. Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you can't just go around killing people, right? And like that's kind of the underlying piece of this is like, when you hear it, you're like, yeah, who are the Jedi to set these rules? But it's also like, but you can't just go cutting people's heads off. Like, that's
Right.
there's an in between here. But I think the idea of like, you can't use the Force unless you're a Jedi is a wild idea. Like, I think that is kind of like the crossing of the line, right? I think he's selling that point really well. I think what he really wants, though, is far from just being like, I just want to pull a pear through the sky and cut it with a knife, and it's a nice parlor trick. He wants to kill people. He wants to like plunder and be a generally bad person. So like, I get why there needs to be someone to account for this. It's very X-Men like, right? It's like, and it's I think it's a great parallel to that, especially having X-23 in there. But
yeah, and we'll see in the next few episodes, because like with Kirmir, what's his end game here? Because why is he taking May's cause as his own? Right? Like, May's got reason why to kill these 4 Jedi, and we're about to know, and I think we're going to learn in the next episode in a kind of weird way, where I think we'll get to it, but like, it's not Osha that's with Soul, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Like, is he planning just to take on he can't. He's too smart. He knows that he can't beat all the Jedi by himself. So I'm still wondering what his end game is and why he's taking May's cause as his own. Unless maybe he was there.
Yeah, I feel like he has either some kind of relation to those witches, or he was just looks at them as like, if they find out about me, this is what they're going to do. They're going to eradicate me like they eradicated this coven. And so I think maybe he feels like he needs more than just him. And that's why he needs to train up somebody. And the best person to train up is someone who should have the same fear as him, which is like, the Jedi will wipe us out if they find out. Right? Like, and so we've got to kill them. And I don't think I don't think that his plan is necessarily what he said of like, you saw my face, now everybody needs to die. I think his plan is planting that seed in Soul's head of like, you guys are wrong. You guys are the ones doing the wrong thing. I am just trying to live my life. And you guys are bad. You think about all the bad things you did on Brendock, right? And I think that he's pushing that narrative and trying to dismantle the Jedi, make them kind of infight with themselves so that he could just go live and cut people's heads off and do whatever he wants.
Yeah. Treat the world like it's its own Grand Theft Auto game.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So, you know, the funny thing is, I wonder at the end of the episode, who knows what? So do you think that Soul knew that wasn't Osha and he still went to the ship with her? Or do you think it's going to totally be on Basil to figure that out and tip off Soul before he gets stabbed?
Yeah, I think you're right about the second part. I think it's gonna be Basil that tips off Soul with a non-verbal. But Osha's got a lightsaber. So do we have another lightsaber duel between Osha and Soul? And that's how we, the audience, are going to learn and what Soul did.
Fake Osha has it. So May has it.
Oh, I'm sorry, May. Yeah, May's got the lightsaber. Sorry, I got them mixed up.
They did the switcheroo, so it's good that, you know, that's how good it was that they got you even messed up.
Yeah, so Soul against May. I think we're gonna get that. Which, you know, here's an idea, a theory. She's supposed to kill a Jedi without a weapon. What if she sabotages the ship and uses an escape pod, and the ship blows up with Saul on it? Does that accomplish it? Does she kill a Jedi without a weapon?
I feel like she did in that case, right? You know, or she just, you know, puts a pillow over him while he's asleep. You know, I guess the pillow might be the weapon.
Is the pillow a weapon?
Yeah, on the flip side of it, Chimera now has Osha. All right. Yeah. And like he seems well aware that it's Osha. So what do you think is going to happen there?
I think he's going to try to turn Osha.
Yeah.
And in the most Sith way of doing this, maybe May is successful. Maybe May kills Soul. And the way this show ends is that ultimately it becomes a battle between May and Osha. Only one can survive. And do you get this tandem between May and Osha to fight Kirmir? Because we've seen that in other stories of Star Wars. Did not work out for Maul.
The only
against Palpatine.
The only thing I worry about with that, because I don't dislike the storyline itself. I think that could work. I worry about them filming that with.
Oh yeah, because it's the same actor.
Because Amandla would have to play both roles. Like even their little fight in that one scene where they're hugging and stuff is, you could tell that they're like having to do some trickery with the camera, doing a really cool fight scene. Man, it could look bad. Maybe someone needs a mask. someone
maybe she gets cut by Soul and then she's got to wear a mask. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about like how to shoot that. But I don't feel confident about Soul's chances of living much longer.
You know, I wonder though, and this is kind of a question of that I'm thinking about here is like, do you think that between Chimera and Soul, that in the next episode we're going to get the story of what happened on Brendock, but from two completely different perspectives, telling the same story completely differently, and trying to turn the people involved towards their side?
Yeah, we've already seen this technique once with Rian Johnson, The Last Jedi, where you have how Luke was telling Rey and then what Kylo told Rey. And then Rey is supposed to put the pieces together to actually figure out what happened. when Luke sends something within Ben Skywalker. Yeah, that's a good point. I could see, yeah, that would be borrowing the technique, right? And bring that back to the
Yeah.
Acolyte, which could set off people. That's the part of the Last Jedi that I did not mind. I thought that was pretty cool storytelling.
People, like on two very different sides of the Last Jedi, I felt like everybody loves it.
Sure. Yep. Everybody loves the Last Jedi, and people
sure
love Rise of Skywalker.
I do like the idea though of like both, like May and Osha, like if Saul and Kamir are aware of who they're with. I know Kamir is, but like we'll see if Saul is. Them trying to turn that person, right? Like trying to change their mind about what they've believed their entire life.
Yeah, the more we discuss this, the more I'm certain we are going to get some type of fight between May and Osha, despite your concerns on how to shoot that.
Yeah, well, I think that's the easy option is a mask for somebody. Get some kind of like Sith relic mask on somebody, and yeah, it'll work out. It'll work itself out.
Yeah.
Or they're just doing Force stuff across the room from each other, and then you can make it look
well
good.
I think you got some foreshadowing, because May said you were never good at blocking.
You can't block.
So maybe
yeah.
Osha defeats May, she blocks her finally.
It's like the Chicago Bears offensive line. So before we go, I'm going to say that I only need one thing from this show now. This episode was great. I need one thing from this show. I need Sol to get back to the council, tell them that he met a Sith, and Coyote-Mundi to just dismiss it. Just go like, no, you didn't see a Sith. There haven't been for millennia. That's all I want. That's all I want left. That's the only thing I'm asking you for, Disney. Just give us that. But
yeah,
Josh, next week we're gonna see what happens here. It's gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. Now that he's exposed, we know who he is, and we're just gonna see the fallout of many Jedi dying. And we haven't seen the light whip yet. So the light whip is still coming. Kelnaka fighting is still coming. Those are things we saw in the trailer. They better not cut those from the show. Want to see both of those. But we will be back next week to recap the show. Enjoy your weekend, all of you, and we will talk to you very soon. Thanks a lot.